Okay, this next one's kind of interesting. I have a client that has a web property that's decades old, lots and lots of very authoritative knowledge articles, and podcast episodes and all kinds of really really good stuff. Considered the expert in his niche. Does a really really great job. Okay, so we're cruising around, and a little while ago, somebody popped up on LinkedIn and said, "Hey, I'm going to go scrape your website," and it was very, very kind, right? And then, there's not like a GPT for ask this guy his opinion on stuff as the authority. And then so somebody said, what would be cool? That'd be a great weekend project to use V0, Vercel, Replit, all the script kiddie code generators. And go scrape his website, and off you go. Now, think about that. A not so technical person can go to your website, grab decades of your intellectual property, pull it in a weekend, and create a small little website that has a search bar that says ask blah blah blah, anything about this one niche, and stand it up in a weekend. Cost of software is going to zero. The speed of software implementation is collapsing. Is it high quality? No. Does it matter? I don't know. And so are things going to go? Important question. Is that make software disposable? I think there's going to be a lot of fast food software that hits the world. AI slop comes to mind. Does it matter? I don't know. So if it stinks, you can go to version 2.0 in the next weekend, or maybe a week, or maybe spend a whole month on it. I don't know. But really kind of begs the question, okay, what could a pro do, and how would I approach this problem differently, knowing what I know and then knowing how it should be built? Could I leverage Claude code to do the same thing in maybe less than a weekend, and maybe a night, and a Friday night? Okay, so let's check it out. So I said, this a couple different ways. And the first way I did it, I said, hey, I want a vector database search, and I know how I'd build it. I've done this a couple times. I have a WordPress site and a React app, and I want to provide robust search capabilities, and we want to use Claude model. Okay. So it came, and it, started thinking, and then started writing code, which immediately went right into Claude code, or coding mode in Claude Desktop. We're not in Claude code yet. I would love for you to code this up for me in a node repo that I can deploy on our AWS instance. And so, whoops, it hit a limit, and then I had to say continue, and then here's the solution. It kind of backed off and said, here's my strategy, because I'm starting to get tired. And then save this in the desktop, and then hit a limit, start another one. Dang it. Okay. So I started another one. And I said, okay, since I'm in here, I'm going to ask it a little differently, right? I'm the CTO. We have a huge, set of stuff. I want to index everything. REST API, Swagger Docs, AWS, MCP server, search widget, the whole shebang. Oh, by the way, there's a LinkedIn post, in case you wanted a little bit of context. And it said, oh, okay. And so went out and read all that stuff, and then, thought about it. And then here's your guide for implementation. And I thought, oh, okay, vector database, AWS, all these are things that, maybe not Fargate, but yeah, maybe. OpenSearch is kind of a new thing, right? So these are all very happy thoughts, coming to the CTO. This is not bad. This is solid, right? Okay, these are good words. And then, okay, there's some code. CDK, I like CDK, infrastructure is code. So it's getting ready to, data ingestion pipeline. Very cool. REST API endpoint. There's your Swagger. Lambda. It says writing it for me. Okay, very cool. Very cool. Very cool. And then it said, I said, create a directory, save this, and get ready to check in as GitHub as a new repo. And it said, oh, okay. And then and then it bonked. And then it said continue, and then it kind of went a little bit more, and then it bonked. And it said, sorry, hit a limit. Okay, so there's a limit. If you try to do something kind of big, there's a limit. But I thought, let's do this in Claude code. All right, so I got a studio out here, asked basically the same prompts, and then went through it. and then iterated a couple things, and then implemented a chunk at a time. And then I basically came across this. I think the way I want to do this is I would use like a desktop to think about it and what's best practices, and maybe kind of noodle through what technologies I might have missed, because there's always new tech coming through, always new offerings on AWS. Maybe you don't want to use AWS anymore. Go find what best practices are, which if you're a software vendor, or if you're a vendor at all with software tools, you're going to have to play with the search engines, which are now, the GPT engines. And so your tool has to rank first, or at least top 3. So the net result here is I was able to look at Claude Desktop and find good solutions, reasonable architecture. I think it's going to work. And I was able to go down to Claude Code in my studio, absolutely knock it out. It implemented the backend first, the infrastructure. It did choose Terraform. So it's gonna do infrastructure as code via Terraform, but maybe I want CDK. I think that's probably maybe a better solution just based on the organization, and that might play better because we don't have Terraform, but we do have AWS stuff. So I go through and I ask it, hey, can you please just go make these changes? So I went through 3 or 4 pretty meaty changes, and I had it add a front end for React. I had it add a WordPress plugin. I had it add MCP server, which is kind of cool. I wrote my first MCP server from scratch tonight, based on an API that already existed that I had designed 5 minutes before, and very little effort. So it went through, and I checked it, and made a couple of pretty meaty check-ins to the repo, and it all worked. It all worked surprisingly, shockingly well, and it left like amazing documentation, and how to readmes all over the place. And, it's going to be really cool to unpack. We're going to have to kind of go look at it and figure it out, as if you're a new coder on an existing project, to kind of catch up a little bit. But man, great breadcrumbs, solid implementation. I think the pattern is going to be, interactive chat to go do research, develop a plan, hone it, review it, and make some changes, right? So it's another good thing that Claude can do is once it writes some code and or writes a paper, or position or plan, you can guide it and say, yeah, Terraform's good. I'd rather have CDK. Can you go change it? And then it just does it, right? And then it just re-implements everything, and then off you go. So I think that's an important way to think about this. It's the way you would do it in a normal environment too, with the team. You go sit down with the architect and have a whiteboard session, go think about some stuff, ask, make some challenges to certain decisions, go do some research, come back, confirm or change, some of the decisions, share it with the team, iterate, implement, test, run, code, rinse, repeat, and add features. So, man, definitely some limits in Claude Desktop. It will write code for sure. But you need to get that Claude Max plan where you get the Claude Code included for free. And man, this absolutely lights out deadly. Very, very, very impressed. I wrote something way better in an hour and a half on a Friday night than this Yahoo did on the internet with V0 and Vercel and all that. And it's plumbed into our infrastructure with our database, and it's going to be so much cooler, and we can roll it out all kinds of different places now. And it's got an MCP. Maybe you can go grab it, and I don't know if we're going to publish it or not. You can plumb it in anywhere that has an AI agent, ChatGPT or Claude Desktop or some others. Very, very cool. MCP is the new REST API. Anyway, that's it for that one.